Hey everybody, it's Saratoga, and this is your weekly focus card reading for the week beginning November 9th through November 15th, 2020. And if you're a new subscriber, you should know that this is something I do every Sunday so that we can reset our focus and our energy for the coming week ahead. And then I do my regular on-camera videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. All right, so let's get started for this coming week. As you can see, this is a beautiful card with an absolutely gorgeous swan on it that says stillness. Now, I want to mention one thing. When I put the other elements around this card, such as the flowers and the quartz crystals and the candle, I do this intuitively. I don't just do it as a visual accent. But today, when I did this before I started filming this video, I realized the reading itself is expanding out past the card to include some of the elements outside of it. And I'll explain what I mean by that as we get into it. Okay, so a fascinating multi-level reading we have with this card. Now, you may not be able to tell by the image, but essentially what this is this swan is in a frozen tundra. It is in ice. There are ice crystals all around the edge. You can see the little white snowflakes falling. So it's in a frozen region, which we don't usually see swans in, right? And the message is one word: stillness. So basically the swan represents our true selves. A swan essentially represents things like beauty and grace and elegance and art and just the depth of who we really are, the depth of our souls. The swan represents evolution and transformation, coming into who we really are, coming into the power of our true selves. And a swan is so elegant and so beautiful. And when you see a swan gliding along the water, there's an effortlessness to the way a swan moves. That's how we are supposed to be. We are supposed to be manifesting as our highest cosmic selves with an incredible level of effortlessness. However, we need to be in the proper environment for that to be possible, don't we? Right now, we are not in that environment. We are not in that reality. Thus, you see, the swan is kind of trapped in the ice with ice crystals all around. It's a cold, frozen environment. Frozen water doesn't move. So if this frozen environment represents our current reality, it's kind of a match, right? So we have who we really are as these beautiful, expanded, amazing, gorgeous cosmic beings of grace and light and love. Yet we're trapped in this very strange situation right now where everything is frozen. It's cold. The reality we're in right now is cold, isn't it? It's not very humane. It's not warm. It's not loving. It's not embracing. It's divisive. It's separated, and it's rigid with no heart, right? That's what we're experiencing more and more and more. So we are, each one of us as human beings, we're like the swan that's trapped in this frozen environment. So let's continue on, because of course the next question is, all right, so what do we do about that? So this is where I'm going to bring in the other elements around the card. So the card itself is inside of a frame, right? The image of the swan in the frozen ice is framed inside of that card. So if we take this whole little setting as the message is we need to expand our consciousness. We are trying to solve this inside the ice itself. We are trying to solve this inside this frozen, cold, I would call it cold-hearted reality, okay? I mean, AI is cold, right? There is no heart in AI. And that's what we ultimately see manifesting more and more on a planetary scale. So we are trapped inside the frame, and we're trying to solve it inside that frame. So in a human sense, it's like we're trying to solve it inside the frame of our perceived reality. And we're having a difficult time doing that, aren't we? We keep trying to solve it on a physical level. And it looks like it's not being solved. It looks like it's only getting worse. So this is a very profound message. It's saying, hey, we need to go outside the boundaries of our perceived reality. We're trapped inside of a reality that right now looks like a frozen timeline that is going in one direction, and it is unyielding, it is cold, it is inhumane, and there's not a lot of warmth, just like ice. Ice doesn't really yield, right? So we need to expand our consciousness. We're cosmic beings, you guys. We are not earth-based creatures. We can live as though we're just earth-based creatures, but that's not the truth. And if we live as though we're only earth-based creatures, we're going to be stuck inside that frame, and we're not going to know a way out. Because what melts that frozen ice? Think about this, you guys. Light and warmth. Light emits warmth. Warmth is what melts the ice. It's no different than a whole planet. Like if you had a whole planet of water that was too far away from the sun, that light source, that water is going to stay frozen. It's never going to melt. But the closer that planet is to the sun, the more likely that water is going to melt. And when that water melts and becomes fluid and warmer, it creates life. It allows for life to flourish. So that's what we have here on the outside. So if you go outside the boundaries of that card, you see, oh, look, there are some beautiful flowers which represent nature, which represent living things allowed to flourish and grow. Because see, that water that those flowers are in is not frozen. It's fluid. It's clear. You can see through it. Can't really see through ice very well, right? Now these flowers are actually sitting on top of these quartz crystals. What I realized after I did this, because I'm just trying to create a scene, right? I realized, oh, of course, because the quartz, clear quartz crystal is an amplifier. So the way I'm seeing this as part of the reading is this is really meant to amplify the reality that we need to be in our consciousness. Okay, we need to be inside the reality that supports life, that is fluid, that is warmth, that has light in it, like the candle light. Okay, there's warmth there. These flowers are flourishing because that water is life-giving. The environment, in other words, the environment that those flowers are in right now is one that supports their life, supports their blooming, supports their unfoldment, supports them reaching the full potential of what they really are. Whereas inside the boundaries of that card, those fixed boundaries, inside that reality, which is frozen, that frozen environment does not support life. Now, it's interesting because after I put this together, I realized, oh, that's interesting. The swan is facing away from that life-giving, amplified environment outside of that frame. So if the swan represents ourselves, it represents the truth of who we really are, which is unchangeable. See, this is the other thing, you guys. That frozen ice, that frozen tundra cannot change who we really are. And that's another message we're getting from this card. It doesn't matter how frozen that environment is. That swan is untouched. That swan is pure. That swan is beautiful. It can't be changed or harmed by that ice, by that encroaching ice that's encroaching from all directions. You see those ice crystals are around the entire perimeter of the frame of the card. It doesn't matter how much snow falls. That swan is untouched. It remains the same. So that's the same thing in our world today. Yes, our world is becoming increasingly cold in terms of our hearts, right? I don't mean temperature cold. I mean cold in terms of our hearts, being inhuman. But it cannot change who we really are. It cannot in any way alter the truth of who we really are. So the biggest message that I can see, if we were to tie this all together, is that we need to stop trying to solve this inside the reality that is creating it. We need to stop trying to solve it inside the circumstances that are creating this problem for all of us. What is the problem? The problem is that we are being shut down. We are being suppressed. We are being cut off from expression. Okay? So if we try to solve that inside the very same reality that's creating it, we're going to have a tremendous struggle, and we might not even succeed inside that reality. If we're coming from a belief that that's the only place we live, that's the only place where we reside. The truth is, we reside in the universe. We are far more powerful than we ever give ourselves credit for. We do not trust the power of our own consciousness. We certainly, as a general rule, do not trust the power and the wisdom and the insight and clarity that lies within our hearts. So we need to start trusting that. Because once we align with that, we have to expand our consciousness outside the boundaries of this current earth-based reality. Wherever you expand your consciousness, that's where you are alive, okay? So you need to be alive in a much bigger universe than this tiny little planet. As difficult as things are on Earth right now, you guys, we need to have perspective. This planet is a speck of dust. It is so microscopic, you don't even have to back up very far in this solar system or just outside the solar system, and it disappears. You don't even see it anymore. Okay? It's tiny. But if we only focus on this tiny earth-based reality, we're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And put it in perspective. Expand your consciousness interdimensionally. Expand your consciousness beyond certainly the solar system. How about at the very minimum level, a galactic level? Expand your consciousness. Understand it wherever you expand your consciousness to, and at whatever level, that's where you actually reside. Then you become bigger than the situation on this earth. You suddenly put it in perspective. You suddenly remember this is a teeny tiny, itsy bitsy, little tiny, microscopic little speck in the universe. So I really think that's the message. The message is expand your consciousness outside the framework of this frozen, cold reality that we currently find ourselves in. Expand your light. You are powerful. You are amazing. You are a creator. You are an extension of the force and power that created everything that exists. You are an extension of that. So it's time that we all get centered, that we stop lying to ourselves and telling ourselves that we're just these tiny little people that we don't know what to do and we're in so much trouble and oh my goodness. You know, we have to stop that. We have to stop that kind of internal dialogue because it's not helping anything. Okay, so I hope this has really inspired you to just pause. And let me just say one more thing about the word stillness. Stillness is the key message here, because what it means is you have to stop flailing around like frantically, like with fear and anxiety and oh my gosh, and I don't know what to do and what's going to happen. You just need to stop all of that. Come back to center. Come back to that center point of stillness. Remember, if you expand your consciousness way past this solar system, you're going to see it's very still. It's a very still reality. And the planet Earth is a speck. Okay? I mean, it literally is a speck. I mean, that's kind of provable. Okay? So, all that noise just kind of disappears and you realize, you know what? I'm so upset. If you're feeling upset, because I know a lot of people are feeling upset, it's like, I'm so upset about this little tiny speck of dust that isn't even registering hardly anywhere. Okay, so I think that will completely transform your experience if you just take the time to be still whenever you can, however you can, and put this all in perspective, which you can only do when you expand your consciousness outside and beyond and well beyond the framework of the stuff going on this teeny tiny little planet Earth. Okay, so I hope you guys found that helpful. I'm sending you all so much love for a peaceful, enlightening week ahead. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great week, everyone. Namaste.